I don't know, there was a big string of cars behind me. I kind of got the right one. Maybe 1,000.
Okay, I'm calling this meeting. Trustee Lee Reader. Present. Gilbert.
Present.
Baines.
Present.
Hill.
Present.
Baptist.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Perez. Absent. Yes. On to the approval of the agenda. Any issues? We're good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. On to the Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Hill, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, any conflict of interest? Hearing none, on to presentations. Okay. Any public comment?
None received prior to the meeting.
Okay, informational items.
General manager's report. Not a lot to go over. We do have a couple items at pumping plant 8. One of the pumps that we talked about last month. So time permitting and materials available, we'll perform that repair, but we still have sufficient capacity at the plant. In regard to pumping plant 8, we did receive back the counteroffer from the property owners of the warehouse building that we're attempting to acquire. The counteroffer was higher than our initial offer, and so we have a meeting scheduled with next week with KSN and their property acquisition department to go over what a potential, because we need to understand a few things in their counter offer, and which is above their appraisal as well. And so we may be scheduling a legal committee meeting to go over the next step of that process and how to acquire the property as opposed to a simple transaction. We may need to come up with some other terms, as they're asking for some other terms in the negotiation as well. So we'll go over that staff internally and probably schedule a legal committee meeting to get some direction on moving forward with that process.
Can you get me up to speed? Are we buying the entire building?
Yes, the entire building and the lot. So correct.
So that's not a negotiating option.
No, we're interested in acquiring the whole thing. Initially, we had planned to acquire a lot line adjustment or parcel split for just areas for the generator, and they weren't interested in that. They told us we'll purchase the whole thing. So yes.
Consider like a long-term grounds.
Well, we need to actually use the property to construct the rebuild of pumping plant 8. So the direction I received, and I can talk to you more offline about that from the board in closed session a couple months ago, was the preference was not to be in the property management business. So
Legal go over it too.
Yeah.
Feel free to attend too if you want.
Yeah.
Also under the CIP, are there any projects we can knock out while we wait for the property acquisition?
So in order of priority, we're still doing some of the CIP work, the minimal items, but the price tag to do the pumping plant 8 rebuild is estimated to be about $31 million. And so our pay-go to do that project, the CIP, now that we have the new stormwater fee in place, is to save that capital in the meantime, not spend it down, so that we don't have to go out and either bond, or to cover that gap, we may be looking at like a low interest loan, short duration from the community bank. And so we're really trying to keep the CIP manageable, knocking some of those things off, but also saving for the future for pumping plant 8. And we'll need that CIP money as well to acquire the property if we get it. So
Well,
it's a balance between.
Well, we started collecting money. I mean, the 218 passed it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And we promised the community we would hit the ground running. And so, as the years go by, when we're waiting, do we need to update our CIP? Due
We'll
to
be talking about
inflation?
that in the budget this year. In fact, Gabe and I had a conversation this week about updating some of the priority in the CIP plan, not a full-blown review of the CIP, but going back, because it's been almost 5 years now since we adopted, is to just go back through with a fresh set and reprioritize. Maybe some things need to be added to that CIP or taken off now that we know more about the system with new management. And so, yeah, we'll be asking the board to approve some of that, an update to the CIP, basically the updated schedule and cost estimate. So the effort's not the full-blown CIP again, but just an update. And so what I can tell you though, in this budget year, because we did promise public the urgency to get this done, depending on if we have a very aggressive CIP plan for this year, is if we do get the community project fund, if it makes it all the way through, we're on the list. If the federal budget gets approved, we will be spending there's $4 million for that generator purchase for pumping plant 8. So we'll be spending down, and our cost share is 25% of that. And then there's some other grant funding that we've been locally cost sharing too. And so we are making progress in spending that money, but we also have to make sure that we have enough in the bank to afford it. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we also work on like just a working document timeline? Just because people have asked, I don't know if you've heard too, but people have asked, like, have you guys started? Where are you guys? They're excited. They want to know. And so I just want to make sure we have that.
Is the biggest concern, highest priority, and it remains that way since 2018. So we have been working on the design, and this major hurdle is the property acquisition. So we're working to get that done.
Yeah, I will say that it's been on my mind, and I just haven't brought it up yet, but the idea of updating the CIP has been something that's been on my mind. Obviously a lot going on, but since we obviously have new management, it now not new anymore, established new management, and obviously with the assessment that was passed as well, I think we need to re-examine those priorities in the CIP. So I'm just voicing my support for revisiting that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think initially all along was like, and it's important to do kind of 5-year increments, right? To reevaluate, pretty standard. And so we'll be doing that in this next budget year. When I come back to you to approve a budget in June, we'll include that CIP update, and we'll work with the operations committee to really put together our timeline and projects and cash flow that we'll have and the needs for the next 5 years. Yeah.
Want to just add, in light of other emergencies and the press saying you were not ready, you didn't have water, you didn't do any brush control. I believe our position is that our capital improvement project is building into the future. So we have today adequate facilities to protect the community. And to me, certainly that's the most important thing, is that we're not playing catch up for sins of the past type thing, or lack of maintenance in the past. So as a trustee, I want to be able to say that when I go out in the public, that our improvements are for the future, and the fact that our stuff is old also, and it is going to die. So we're not.
The whole extent of the CIP and then the subsequent financial plan, and then the special assessment for the stormwater fee, was to make sure that we're no longer operating in a run to failure mode, and that we're being proactive with life cycle replacement of our assets and infrastructure. There are some facilities, as noted in the CIP and during the process for the stormwater fee, that we are running out of clock. The shot clock's on to replace, and that's why we're wanting to go out as soon as we could. Now that we have the funding, it's getting those plans and stuff in place, and also to have the pre-engineering done so that we can capitalize on any funding that's made available, whether loans or grants or appropriations. And so we have aggressively pursued that this year. We received disaster relief funding, the SFRP program, as well as a promise for the community project fund. So we're working towards that, and we'll continue to be aggressive in those opportunities. So we're prepared. We're staging, the district, but you're right. We are on top of it, and that's where the leadership of this board came through, acknowledging the CIP, making sure that we're planning so we don't run into a situation that we're seeing elsewhere in the state.
Yeah, I just want to say to that, Tom, I mean, as I guess at this point, the second longest serving board member, I think, is that right? Yeah. So Tom Gilmer obviously has been around for a long time, and the stormwater fee is a culmination of many years of work, that the order of operation was meant to, sequence things such that we worked on the CIP. It wasn't like a one and done kind of thing. It was a very involved process to develop that CIP. And then obviously the CIP formed the foundation for the request to the community to approve this fee to pay for all this stuff. So I think we've been certainly on top of doing our due diligence. It takes time. And we're a district that has been in transition for quite a few decades, from an agricultural primarily district to a more urbanized area. And I think we've been making significant progress. And I'm, proud of where the district is right now with regards to providing those critical infrastructure components. And we're right on the cusp, I think, of, some pretty big projects. I'm building on top of the projects that the staff and the Corps are making. So I feel like we're in a good spot.
And thanks, Nick. And I can't say that in the past 3.5 years, we have made significant improvements into our preventative maintenance programs. When we talk about the failures that we've had at our debris racks, because of a lack of replacement of critical components and not having items on staff or on hand, it has been, or was, a lot more risky, and we've made those improvements, and that's been out of the CIP budget, but we just haven't done like the full-blown rebuild of pumping plant 8 and making sure we have backup generation, at least our 2 most critical plants. So we're aggressively pursuing that. Yep.
So it seems like we're expecting design sometime by July. So property acquisition, stays on time. You expect construction starting this year?
Well, on the backup generator portion, yep. And then we'll have to look at how we fund the construction. So the idea would be not to phase it. Without the acquisition of property, we'd have to phase over multiple flood seasons the replacement of pumping plant 8, right? Because you do it in situ. Here, the plan is that we'd save a significant amount of time, money, and risk of having multiple startups and shutdowns to build a mirror plant, updated, modernized plant, the new site, and then flip the switch once testing's all done. So that theoretically, permitting and everything else could be done in probably 18 months with the financing in place, 18 months from the date of acquisition of the property, right? But we'll have the backup generators if the appropriation goes through. We'll make that purchase immediately. Those will probably take 6 to 12 months for delivery. So we'll have the backup generators on site that we can use. We'll wire them up so we have them available, and then we'll start constructing the plant.
Some of the problems are easier compared to this one. It seems like we won't be much more very used to it.
Yeah, and so we are doing those other, some culvert replacement stuff, the trash rack replacements and components, and so those projects that are fairly easy to tackle that are on life cycle for the CIP, we are doing that work. Yeah.
For instance, probably plan number 3,
the trash and barrel is completely worn out. That's part of the CIP plan. We're doing that here next month. So we're implementing the small projects, the ones that don't have a high cost.
Can we add that to our report so we can track that as well? So that when people ask again, we could just be like, hey, we're knocking out these things.
Yeah, and when we do that update, we'll check off what's been accomplished and
I'm sure things are a lot pricier now.
it's generally in the annual budget too, right? So what, if you go back as a reference point that we completed these things and the money that's been spent, so.
Sounds like we need a legal committee and we need an operations committee meeting. Okay, on to the,
Question, are we replacing each of the individual pumps, or are we taking, what, we have 5 there now, converting it to 3?
We've done the modeling through Utah State University on what those, because we have some cavitation issues and things, so they've modeled out and spec the pumps that we need, and putting, you know, baffling plates or whatever to prevent cavitation. So we'll make sure that we maintain and slightly improve the pumping capacity there. So we're not
With the same
reducing.
number of pumps?
Yes.
We're replacing
Yeah.
one at a time, okay. That's-
Yeah. And Safeco still owes us the replacement of, and so we told them to hold off, but because of the core project, there were 2 pumps that needed to be replaced as part of that project. And we said, once we get our done, we don't know what we need yet, but some of the capacity was reduced because of the discharge line through, because of the K factors and friction losses. We have to upsize some of those pumps. So that's about $500,000 that we'll get from Safeco as part of the project too.
Well, the other thing folks need to understand is we can't go ahead and full blown design, not going to your house or not. So there is that lag. And this might be our biggest project, something like 8.
It is.
The whole town.
That's correct. Yep. And most critical.
So that part slows it down. So I know when you say hit the ground running, they want to see construction. I certainly understand that.
Yep.
Getting the design approved, getting it done, and then approved by kids.
It does.
It looks like maybe 26. Could go out to bid.
That's right.
No, instead of what you're supposed to also.
Long lead time.
We must start at 26.
Well, it's medium voltage as well, so that takes even longer.
So with that, any other questions on the general manager's report?
I didn't know Christina.
Oh,
And
yeah.
one that probably by surprise, I'm guessing the road from Nick Child. Or, wow, it doesn't matter, you know, it's something I'd like to say, I always like her.
Yeah.
Her face, her approach, her things, now she's very matter of fact, getting things.
Yeah, so
Thank her for
that certainly, and she did a good job for the district for many years, and she decided for whatever reason to separate from the district. So we'll be working to replace that position in the next couple months and get someone on full time. So,
Okay.
All right.
Gabe,
Yeah, good morning. The only item I have is we commissioned and performed the start procedure at pumping plant number 2 for the new switchgear that we installed. So that was a big step. Now that plant is fully operational. So that's huge. So on the northern end of the district, that was the facility that was had 1 pump out and operational. So that both pumps are now looking at that facility, which is right next to the airport. So we're in good shape there. It's a huge step for the district.
Can you tell me what scarring means?
Scarring.
Is that what you used? You said it's.
Start.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so there's
Maybe I
a-
misheard it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So when we had the switchgear installed, which was about 1.5 years lead time, so we had to get that installed.
Okay, you don't have, it's
Yeah,
okay.
I was
I
just-
thought I heard a word that I hadn't heard
Yeah,
before.
it was a big process. a
Okay.
long process.
Yeah, we're good.
No, we're good. So that was it.
okay. Thanks. Gabe.
things that are down. 4 isn't fully operational yet.
4, we're still waiting for the capacitor bank to be installed back 4. Yeah, that'll be
And getting everything down to the levels of pumps.
at plan 8. Yeah, it's a short to ground on the conduit wire.
We're ready.
We're good. Yeah, we're really good. Good shape.
Thanks.
Good.
Okay, so legal report, very brief. It's been nicely quiet around here. We've been doing kind of a normal, occasional follow-up items. One thing that we haven't talked about yet that I wanted to flag for you all, I think you know that, in connection with Ava's appointment to the board, we, Kevin and I got pulled into a meeting with the, county staff to better understand our elections. And it became very clear that with staff turnover every couple of years, there's going to be this problem of them trying to understand the strange piece that is your election. So what we committed to is kind of once the dust settled and we had our new trustee in place, is providing them with sort of a high level overview of timelines and what to expect, because invariably, if you end up in this position again where you've got not enough candidates to have an election, you're going to have to come back to them again on pretty short water code notices, and get them to cooperate with that. So we're trying to streamline it for the next time around.
Sounds good.
I do want to add one other thing on the legal report. So last month we had a closed session and the district denied the board denied the claim from Brookman Security Services, but also with the understanding that we needed some more information. We might be missing something. So Scott has been working on that. We received some information from their attorney yesterday. So Gabe and I are reviewing that, and we'll have a meeting with Scott on Thursday next week. And we may come back to probably for legal counsel to schedule a legal counsel meeting for that. So legal committee
Clear.
for two, for legal committee for two items, the warehouse and for the claim from Brockman Security Services. So some new information has been made available, and we'll share that and then come back to the board probably on both of those items, hopefully in February.
Okay, we're putting it to work. Onto this consent calendar.
Earning per diem.
Onto the consent calendar. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Moved second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The consent calendar is approved. On to 6.1, review and consider approval of board committee assignments for 2025.
So before you annually in January, after the board president, vice president are selected in December, the board president makes a recommendation to the board for various committee assignments. The committee assignments are provided on the table in the staff report. And so what we'd like is a motion to approve those committee recommendations. If one of the trustees is uninterested in serving on one of those committees, you can make that known. But if you're okay with the committee assignments, we'd entertain a motion to approve the board president's recommendation on these. If you choose to be on the urbanization committee, we need to schedule an urbanization committee meeting as well. So we'll have 3 committee meetings probably before the February board meeting, just to get some things, off our task list. So
I'll move approval of the committee assignments.
Okay. The second. Let's open for public comment first. Hearing none. I've got a motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. The committee assignments have been approved. No closed session. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So we.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. I'll see you next time.
I'm assuming.